our speaker today, our lovely lady. You know, you look just the same, just like before.
Oh,
No change at
stop.
all. And then that's we had a wonderful time long time ago, isn't
Oh, it was
it?
fantastic. I mean, take us back, but sure, you haven't aged a day yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to explain about me, Jeanette, for all of you. So Jeanette was born in the west of Ireland. She grew up on a dairy farm and she really loved growing up in nature. Jeanette has various jobs growing up as a teenager. She worked in a sports shops, grocery stores, and she also loved working with animals. At the age of 19, after 1 year of studying law, oh, I just know that, Jeanette immigrated to Scotland, where she studied her first degree in holistic medicine. Oh, really?
Yep.
Jeanette worked with NHS. I have no idea what is this stand for, but Jeanette will
Yeah, it's
explain to
the
you.
yeah, it's the national health system for
Oh,
Great
I
Britain.
see.
Yeah.
Okay. And for many years before qualifying um, as a teacher with her PGDE, it's almost the same like David, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So in Scotland we call it the postgraduate diploma in education.
Yeah. Jeanette work moved to Indonesia, where she worked for many years, and then went to Kalimantan, where she lived and worked for 2 years. That's the way. That's the reason why we can meet and know each other,
Yeah.
because Jeanette was working in Kalimantan, especially in Balikpapan. Long, it's about 8 years ago. Same time with David. And Jeanette went back to Scotland for further her education and work in the Highlands of Scotland for a year. Over the years, Jeanette has gained many leadership positions, including head of English and head of art. This led Jeanette to head of teaching and learning in British school in Morocco. Jeanette moved further north in Africa after a job opportunity arose as deputy head in Cairo, Egypt. Oh, that's a nice position.
Yeah.
So Jeanette is currently working in Egypt where she loves it. Jeanette has a strong connection to Ireland and visits her family and friends regularly. So that's a brief information about our speaker today. And then for your information, everyone, the question and answer will be directly just like before asked by the speaker, asked to the speaker. And now the time is yours, Miss Annette.
Great. Fantastic. Where's my first question?
Okay, you can start now. The time is yours, Miss Annette.
Okay. Well, I guess in terms of, I mean, it's basically the cultural background and whatnot, and I mean, growing up in Ireland, gave me very strong family foundations. The whole growing up in a family on the west of Ireland, you do get a lot of traditions, a lot of inbuilt culture within the family. I mean, in terms of culture within Ireland, it's a lot to do with music and dance, and lots of fun. Yeah, that's primarily how we grow up and whatnot. Um, and I guess the educational system was great growing up in that as well. I think there's a big link in Ireland towards nature, just the same as we'll say in Kalimantan or Indonesia or in Egypt. A lot of the culture, be it whatever religions people have adopted, the culture is still very much based in nature, which I think is really beautiful. Regardless of what religion you might be, there's that connection amongst everyone that's very much connected to the land and to nature. And I think that was a real pull for me to move to Indonesia and Kalimantan. And Balikpapan is a very special place in my heart. because there is that connection to nature, and I think we're very lucky to have that. In different parts around the world to find that. So I think we're really lucky about that. In terms of, we'll say, traveling and how I found it culturally, it has been different cultures and challenges over the times. But I think, I've been very lucky to meet amazing people. So it's never been too much of a culture shock. I think if you meet the right people in different countries, then, it's a very easy transition to make. And I've found people very warm and very open. In every country I've been lucky enough to visit and to live in. So that's been fantastic for me. I've found that the level of education in Indonesia is one of the best on a global scale. I spoke recently about the professionalism, in Indonesia amongst the staff and colleagues and just people in general, that, they don't embark on a job unless they want to do it well. And, there is that thing, there is no time limit on it. The time limit is when the job is done and it's done well. And that's something I will always take from Indonesia, that, that's great in it. And I think that's a work ethic that I very much grew up with as well in Ireland. Culturally, that, like, if you go and embark on a job, then you make sure that it's finished to the best of your ability. You never leave a job before it's finished. So I think that's a transition that I found very easy into Indonesia, because I think the work ethic is the same. I mean, there was great opportunities as well in Indonesia to learn from others. I really think I've built on, my own educational foundation within Indonesia. And I think if you're willing to work hard and put that in, there was amazing scope for job opportunities and promotions. There was always those opportunities given to you if you're willing to work within that. So I'm very grateful for Indonesia for that, because it was really Indonesia that gave me the opportunities to put me to where I am today. So I'm very, very grateful for that. It's been a fantastic experience. I mean, my first time traveling overseas was when I was 19, and I went to Morocco, and I traveled by myself, and that was a fantastic experience. But I think, Indonesia will always have a very special place in my heart in terms of the travel and the culture and the people. And there's so much, diversity within Indonesia as well, that, after the 5 years that I spent there, I could easily have spent another 5 years exploring, probably a lifetime actually. But, and it was just so beautiful. I mean, even from off Jakarta, and you have the 1,000 islands, and it's so accessible, and, and then I mean, you move on to things like Raja Ampat and, Bali and the Gili Islands, and, on Java itself, and Borobudur, and, it was such an amazing experience to be there and to learn off everybody else's cultures, and find, that there are so many links actually within these cultures all around the world. I mean, in Kalimantan, I remember the tribes there visiting, and I bought one of the ancient tribal calendars. And when I took it home to Ireland and I showed my parents, my mom said, "Oh, that's, that picture on the top of that calendar is very like Síl na gig." Síl na gig was, it was an ancient symbol of, the light shining into people. So it was kind of like a pre-religious symbol, which made sense that the tribes people would have had it as well. So that was interesting, and the connections. And then obviously with Gunung Padang in Java, that I was lucky enough to visit before I came over to Egypt. There seems to be a lot of links and these special places around the world, which makes me feel more and more that, we are so connected, and even, we might be dotted around the planet, but there are a lot of things that I think connect us in many ways. And I think a huge part of that is, like I said, within nature, and that connection to nature, I think keeps us all very close. And I think that's, it's so important now within education, that we are giving, children that education about taking care of our planet and with climate change and the rest of that, because that's what's going to keep us connected. We're lucky enough to have the internet and the rest of it, but keeping that connection to nature and the land and taking care of it, that's what I think will keep the strongest bond between all of us, So yeah, I mean, it's an experience, and it's a journey that I'm still very much on, but I'm very grateful for all the different cultures that I've met along the way, and all the experiences that I've had as well. Currently, I'm in Egypt, and I've been here now for just over 2 years. And again, the warmth of the people as well. They're very open, very friendly, very accommodating. And again, there's so many amazing things to see here. I'm not sure if you saw it, but the Pharaoh's Parade was on there a few days ago, where they moved some of the pharaohs from the old museum to the new museum. And they did a fantastic job in how they organized that, and how Egypt was portrayed, that it is a very mystical land, and there is so much to explore within it as well. And and the people are so lovely here. It makes it very easy to be able to do that. So I'm very grateful for that as well. Yeah, it's been a lot of different experiences. Will Egypt be home forever? I don't know. I've signed a contract for another 2 years. I've always thought about South America as well, and potentially living there for a couple of years, because it's a place I would really like to explore. And again, I think, you look at the infrastructure of, Gunung Padang in Indonesia, the pyramids, the stone circles in Ireland, and then Machu Picchu in Indonesia. They're all kind of similar structures. So there's, we're kind of looking back on our ancestors and whatnot with all these structures as well. And, they didn't have the internet. So how did these things link up? How are the structures similar? So it's, it builds on that. And that's something that I'm very interested as well, on how people connect, and, the connections that maybe have been there before us, that maybe we've lost out on some of that knowledge over the years. But I think, potentially, and I'm very excited about it, that perhaps that knowledge is coming back again, because I feel, as humanity and with children growing up now and education, that it's so important that we learn more about this, because yes, the internet has connected us, but in some ways it has isolated us. I find myself that I'm teaching social skills, and those kind of things in international schools that I wouldn't have taught before, because we'll say when I grew up pre-internet, I'm not going to tell my age, but pre-internet, I think I was one of the first ones to be on the internet and whatnot. Yeah, and that connection that is supposed to bring us together, I think, has, maybe isolated us with iPads and whatnot. And I think it's really important within education to make sure that children can connect to their land and that they understand it. And, simple things like building a fire and sitting around and sharing old stories, and those kind of things, I think it's a real lost art. And it's something that I think should very much be part of education, because without understanding your own culture, it's very hard to understand where your roots are, and to progress as well. And I think it's so important, to become, insightfully global, but at the same time, to know where your roots are. Because I think, I on a personal level, I don't think I would have been able to leave Ireland when I was 19 and really start on my global trek around the world had I not had such a fantastic foundation in the family I have. I always knew that, my family are there for me, regardless of where I am around the world. And, I'm passionate about Ireland and Irish culture. I love the language, everything about our people. And it's so important to go home and do that. But I think if you don't have that connection with your family and the culture and the land, then I think it would have made it a lot more difficult for me to be able to travel around the world globally. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I would say study your roots, understand where you're from, and then, you know, like, keep a focus on the places that you grew up and whatnot. But I think, you know, we're really thinking on a global scale now, like I said before, about education within climate change. And I think that's so important to share that. I mean, I was at Woodstock Festival, and they had and this was in Australia. I met another colleague of mine that I worked with in Balikpapan, Miss Charlene, and we were going through, and there was an eco part of the festival that we were interested in. And next thing we see two tribes people that had flown over from Kalimantan, you know, with all the feathers and whatnot, and it looked absolutely amazing. And it just really brought it back to us how beautiful our time in Kalimantan was, and to experience that in Australia was really phenomenal. Um, trying to think now where else to go from there. There's the cultural aspect, there's the connection aspect. I mean, it's a, you know, it's, I think it's so fantastic to learn about other cultures, because you do learn more about yourself and who you are, and, you know, what boundaries you have, and, you know, how much you want to explore. And I think it's, yeah, I mean, traveling, you know, is something that I think it's, you know, it's very rich in experience. So I've always said, you know, to travel is an investment into who you are as a person, and what you can become as well. I think is very, very important. So I would say, you know, be wise about your travels. Always make plans. Always make sure that you know, people know where you are and whatnot. But it's okay to take educated risks as well, I think, when you're traveling, because that's all about the experience. I remember going to Rinka Island for a birthday, and I hadn't really researched it, and I hadn't really researched about the Komodo dragons either. But, you know, that's part of the experience. Like, you know the country a little bit, but don't be afraid to explore. You know, there are lovely people that you'll meet along the way. But you know, I never had any issues traveling, thank God. And, you know, as a single woman from Ireland, you know, I have heard of people having, we'll say, you know, less than fantastic experiences. But thank God, you know, I've never experienced anything that hasn't been very open and very friendly in any countries that I've been around the world. Um, and I think I'm on 42 countries now at the moment, to have visited or lived in. Where I live now in Cairo, that is my 32nd home since I was 19. So that's quite a lot of traveling over the years. But I think when you've traveled so much and there's that many places you've lived in, I joke about it that it you know, it only takes me an hour to make the place home, because there's certain things that I need there, you know, whether it's, you know, the wayangs that I have from Indonesia that I have on my wall, or be it, you know, a singing bowl from Tibet, or, you know, like from Morocco, I have some beautiful paintings, the Irish harp that I have, you know, they're little trinkets, but these things make a home. So it's part of the adventures, part of the cultures, part of the love that I've picked up along the way from people. So they're those little reminders, and I think they you know, they're so special to me. And again, that's, you know, from experiencing other cultures, it's, you know, it's made me feel home wherever I go in the world. So that's been really important to me. And there's actually, I brought into my students, which is really nice. We were studying volcanoes, and I was lucky enough to climb Krakatoa before it erupted again. So I guess it was Anak Krakatoa that we climbed. And I took a piece of the volcanic stone and the pumice stone as well. So it was amazing to have that, you know, real life, show them that, you know, primary piece of evidence that, you know, this is where I was, and just to put that in their hands, give them really good connection to what I was teaching in school. And, that really opens up as well the experience for children, I think, as well, when they're learning, children and adults, likewise. So yeah, I feel very, very lucky about the experiences that I've had. And I think, the more open that you are to cultures, the more that you can learn along the way. I've always loved that, the motto for Indonesia, and I think it's very true, unity in diversity. And it's probably one of the most tolerant countries I've ever been in of other religions. And I've really loved that, regardless of what religion you are, everybody's friends and everybody talks and everybody's very, very open with each other about their religions. And, you can have someone that might be Muslim, someone that might be Christian, and they're the best of friends. And it's like, well, that's your religion. And I often say to my students, whatever happens in life, you do what you need to do for you, and I think there's a lot of peer pressure on students nowadays to be a certain way. And I think it's so important, if you stay true to yourself, that will shine through. And I think that, that shining will turn into your success. I think everybody's authenticity is what makes them great and what makes them special. And I would say stop trying to fit in, to a box, or, the social media pressure that there is nowadays. I think it's really important to try and stay true to yourself and, keep that on authenticity. Which, I mean, I haven't lived in Ireland for over 17 years, and I don't think my accent has died down too much. Yeah, I'm probably one of the few people that would speak Bahasa Indonesia with a very strong Irish accent. But again, there was never any problems there, like tidak apa-apa, people, would be so open and so excited by the fact that I was speaking the language, that there was never any criticism about it, which was fantastic. And I can't say I've had the same experience globally, but I'm not going to mention countries. But Indonesia always comes out as probably the most accommodating, when it came to speaking the language. And yeah, even thinking about it makes me a little bit emotional, because it was such a fantastic experience for me. So I'll always keep that in my heart for sure. What would I say in terms of advice? I think if you're experiencing cultures, and I know the same with Indonesia and Egypt as well here, and like with Ireland, humor is a huge part. And I think, okay, if you're not able to speak the language, that's fine. Maybe sing a song from your own country. I think getting that, that connection can be through the arts. It doesn't mean that you have to be fluent in a language. You can just, be yourself, have some fun, don't take yourself too seriously. And just, music as well is a fantastic way to bond. I think, throughout the countries that I've been, I've always had an Irish song to sing, and, whether people understand the words or not, you understand the feeling. And I think sometimes, that feeling can really build connection. So I think if you're anyway musical, or even if you're not, that's part of the fun, because you can have a laugh along with it. But I think that's something that's really connected me to people over the years of traveling, is music and, jokes about, jokes about not even understanding what each other is saying, and you end up miming, for 20 minutes, but you still build that connection, which is very, I think, very childlike and very pure. So it's quite playful, when you're interacting with people and you don't know the language. But, 99.9% of the time, people are good, so it's, I think if you go to people with that good energy as well, it will be mirrored back to you and reciprocated and welcomed as well, Yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful for the life I've had and the opportunities I've had. And like I said, Indonesia gave me a lot of my opportunities along the way, and, opened those doors and gave me that opportunity to, build further my education and my career. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And, like meeting people along the way that were so positive and, very, what's the word I'm looking for? So they gave me the opportunity, but they were also, they pushed me to do well. They saw, what I could do before I believed in myself. So that was amazing for people to believe in you before you kind of had that push yourself, and then that builds your confidence over the years with experience, and that's super beneficial as well. Um, yeah, it's been a fantastic journey on the different cultures and working in education, and I guess a lot of people kind of go into education straight out of school and that kind of thing, and I mean, that works for some people. For me, I needed more life experience. I had a job prior to it, and I think any job that you do will have a good effect on the job that you're doing in education, for sure, because it's all life experience. And I think that's really important with students, that we don't just focus on the academic side of things, because we can get caught up in grades, and we can get caught up on entry exams into university, and obviously it's competitive, and I understand that. But and I often say this to my students, that okay, you can have excellent academic skills, but when you're going into business, you need to have social skills also, and you need to be able to put your point across in a way that's know your audience. Basically, that's something that I teach the kids a lot. And sometimes I do say to them, sometimes it's easier to say sorry than to ask for permission. And I mean that in the best possible sense, that sometimes you need to take risks in life, educated risks, and to have that faith in yourself as well, and take those opportunities and those risks to further yourself, be it within education or within business. Just taking those chances, I think, are really important as well, to have really optimum success. I think hard work, but as well along the way, developing those social skills and taking those risks are very important. It can be daunting and very challenging. I mean, I've definitely felt challenged a lot over the years in my career steps. But then at the same time, I've felt very alive with those challenges, and it's kept, my love of education and my love of people. It's kept it very exciting and very fresh. And I think that's so important as well when you're traveling, as I'm sure a lot of your students will do as well. So I think they're all very rich experiences to have along the way. But I guess the foundation and the bottom line would be kindness as well. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And I think, as a teenager, I think that's advice that I would have really have loved to have heard as well, that you have to take care of yourself first before you go on to take care of others. It's so important to have that self-care for yourself, so that you don't run out of energy, and that you have that battery that you can give to others. Because I know a lot of people that work in the educational sector and the vocational sector, and when you are helping others, it's very easy to burn out, which I'm sure a lot of people in education can, sometimes there aren't enough hours in the day. But I think it's so important to make that limit as well, and turn off that phone, even if it's for 30 minutes in the day, or if you're lucky enough that you can do it for an hour within the day, and take some time out, whether you need to pray or do yoga or meditate or whatever it is that connects you to that part of you. I think that's super important, and that's a very good piece of advice I got throughout the years, and I think that's really helped me to perform at an optimum level as a human being. What else would I say about culturally? I mean, it's been a dance. It's been a fantastic dance of cultures, and I definitely feel a richer person for it within the experiences. Yeah, those experiences, there is no comparison between the experiences and monetary value. These are things that you cannot put a price on, and travel is, it is priceless, because you learn so much about other people, and like I said earlier, that has a mirror effect. You know, the more you learn about other people, then the more you learn about yourself and who you are and your beliefs and where your boundaries are at. And I think that's so important. Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm at with it. Are there any questions for me along the way, Marlon? Or
All right, and the question is open. Anybody would like to ask question regarding Ireland?
excuse me.
You can introduce yourself first, Patrick, before you ask question.
Oh, hello, ma'am. I'm Beatrix Angelica, the one that greetings you when you have first in this Zoom.
Lovely to meet you.
Yes. I want to ask about the big event in Ireland, like a national event in there. There is a big event there? Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, there's a big event in Ireland probably every weekend. But I would say, yeah, I think our culture is very similar in a sense to Indonesia. We love singing, we love dancing, we love laughing. A really big one for us is probably St. Patrick's Day on March 17th. It's a huge one that is celebrated in Ireland, and people, you know, the whole country has parades, and you know, everybody celebrates. And then it's quite a global thing as well, because I mean, I think currently we're at about 6.5 million people in Ireland, but we have 48.5 million Irish passports around the world. So it just goes to show, for such a tiny island, you know, we've dotted around and we've emigrated to a lot of countries. And with that, we have brought our culture as well. So St. Patrick's Day is, you know, it's globally celebrated, but obviously due to emigration, there's a huge celebration in America, and in the UK also. But I think, I mean, I celebrated St. Patrick's Day in Balikpapan when I lived in Kalimantan, and you know, we made those potato cakes, we sang the Irish songs with the kids, and it was fantastic. And I think, you know, that's, you know, something really beautiful about Indonesia overall, that people are very open to learning about other cultures. And you know, it was celebrated, and you know, the Irish dancing and the Irish singing, yeah, we had a fantastic day that day. So that brings back a lovely memory to me. So I guess if there was one thing that would probably stand out as something that Irish people are known for, and would say on one occasion, then I would say it's St. Patrick's Day. So you'll have to come to Ireland to experience it. You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Beatrix. Any more questions, everyone? About Ireland, you can ask whatever you like to ask about Ireland.
Ma'am, can I ask?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Hannah Tricia, and I want to ask, in your culture, is it polite to be straightforward and direct when you talk to someone? And to whom is it okay, and to whom is it not okay?
Okay. Yes, I think, I mean, we're quite a direct culture within Ireland. I would say that we use humor a lot, you know. So like if we want to say something that might be a little bit challenging for the other person to hear, normally we use humor to disguise it. And you know, we are very direct, but I think we use you know, our humor to kind of soften the blow of something that might be so direct. I think, yes, I mean, there would be, because I mean, we are predominantly Catholic. So, you know, there's a lot of respect within our religion and whatnot. So I think probably, you know, we would be very cautious and very respectful of you know, the clergy within Ireland as well. And there's a huge respect for teachers and priests and that kind of thing. And obviously, you know, people that would be within politics and government officials. But I think there's a huge respect for each other. And, you know, I find every time I go home that our people are very warm and very supportive and very complimentary of each other. You know, we're a very warm people. You know, like if you're on the train or, you know, you're on a flight and you have a heavy bag, I found, you know, in Ireland, there, you know, you will never have to lift a bag down, where be it another woman trying to help you or another gentleman or whatnot. So it's a very helpful culture. And again, I think in every culture, it's important to know your audience. And I speak with my students about this as well, that obviously when you're speaking to your principal, it's going to be very different to you speaking to one of your peers at lunchtime. So I think it's important to develop that skill of knowing your audience. But I think that applies to probably all the cultures that I've been in, and not just Ireland. But one thing that stands out to me within Ireland, that it's the delivery, and a lot of the time how you deliver things is through humor. So does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're so welcome.
So please, just don't forget to let us know how many minutes we have to for today class, because you are going to have your class, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, I've got my class now in about 15 minutes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we just have about 15 minutes to go. Do you have any more questions to Miss Jeanette?
Come on, guys, there must be lots of questions.
Come on. We just have 15 minutes left.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
My name is Tania, ma'am. I want to ask some question.
Sure.
Does your culture have a perspective on mental health therapy or counseling?
Yeah, I would find Ireland is very open now. I think with challenges faced with mental health. I think it was something maybe, I would say 40, 50 years ago that wasn't really talked about. And I think, you know, people were not as open about their feelings and, you know, what they needed. But then I think, you know, 40, 50 years ago, we didn't have the same challenges that we have now. And I think we are in a stressful society nowadays. There is a lot of, you know, working, and, you know, it's a lot of working to live rather than, you know, or, well, living to work rather than working to live. And I think they are challenges that are faced. But I think Ireland has really developed over the years in terms of the view on mental health and what support there is there now. So I think we have, you know, come to the stage now where we are a lot more aware of this.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're most welcome.
Anybody? Any more question?
Ma'am.
Yes.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Kathleen. I want to ask, what are traditions in Ireland?
Okay. Excuse me. Traditions in Ireland, we have a lot. You know, like as in we very much, it's very important for us. A lot of people, you know, we gather on Sunday for mass, and then we would have Sunday dinner afterwards. I mean, a tradition that I really loved, and, you know, growing up, and I think this was, you know, very much within my family with my three brothers and my mom and my dad. You know, we would come home from church on a Sunday, and we would all sing and dance, and, you know, while our lunch was cooking. And this is something that I thought was, you know, very normal, and, you know, that every family did it. And I'm sure there are many families that do it, but that's a tradition that we had within our families. I mean, you know, going to church is a huge tradition in Ireland. We, you know, I think Samhain as well, which, you know, people would know as Halloween, is a big one for us as well. well, I think we're very connected to the people that have passed before us. So it's a huge tradition for us to honor them in any way we can. And I think that's something that's very beautiful about Ireland. Traditions as well. When I think of my mom, on this one, and my grandfather, he would always, he had a bakery business in the west of Ireland. And on the 1st of May, he would go out and sweep. And the first thing he would say is, all for me, May morning early, which, my mom did the same tradition. It was like letting in the coming of the summer. So, and that's something I always think about on the 1st of May. And again, because that would have been more of a pagan tradition, it's kind of been brought through, we'll say, culturally, even though we're very much a Catholic culture overall. But I think a lot of our pagan traditions have stayed through the religion as well, which I think is very important, because it's kept us who we are. I think we've kept our language as well, which is really important, and I think it's very beautiful, which I think is so important. I guess if you want to understand your ancestors, you need to understand the language that they spoke as well. So I think that's very important. But we have lots and lots of traditions. They're the ones that really kind of pop into head. I mean, my dad would have been studying the weather and that kind of thing, and he would know of a lot of traditions from his father as well. I would joke with Dad that he would taste the rain before it came, and there's a lot of traditions within that on just knowing the land and how the land works, and giving back to that as well. I think in Ireland we're very connected to nature, and that's something that I'm very grateful for, being able to grow up being so connected to nature as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I am April, would like to ask something about.
Sorry, what was that?
I would like to ask about in the entertainment there, like the actors or artists or like music or movie.
Sorry, would you mind asking that question again? I think my internet is a little bit lagging. Sorry.
Is it my voice clear?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I want to ask about the entertainment there, like the actress or the music.
Okay. Yes. I could probably talk for hours on this. Unfortunately, I have to teach. Music and film, and I mean, overall, the arts culture in Ireland is very strong. I mean, you probably know of the Cranberries and U2 and Westlife and Boyzone. They're the ones that kind of pop out in my head. But you've other ones then, like Sinead O'Connor and the Pogues. There's a lot of, I think, famous musicians that have come out of Ireland. And again, I think it's because of the confidence in the people within, music, and it's very much, give it a go kind of culture. And just, we have a saying, sure, do it for the crack. And crack it's the Irish word for fun. It's written CRAIC in the Irish language. So we joke a lot. We're like, sure, do it for the crack. In other words, do it for the fun. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. So I think, luckily enough, we've grown up in that culture of it's okay to make mistakes along the way, because that's how you learn. So I think that's, given the foundations for a lot of fantastic musicians that have come out of Ireland. And again, with film, there's a lot of famous actors that have really, I think, contributed to the film industry as well. You probably know Saoirse Ronan. She would probably be the most up and coming Irish woman that I can think of. Pierce Brosnan as well. He was from Kildare, I think, on the East Coast. And you know, like Liam Neeson as well, he did very well. There's a lot of good Irish artists out there, and a lot more up and coming that I can see as well. So yes, we're very involved in the arts and music and film.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you for the question.
Any more question? Time
Ma'am,
is ticking.
Ma'am.
Okay, go ahead. Who's like to start first?
may I?
Yes, okay, Grace.
Ma'am, could you tell us what is the most popular traditional food or drink in Ireland? Thank you.
Okay, Marlon, you probably know about this one as well. I made the potato cakes when I was in Ballypapan for St. Patrick's Day. Potatoes, I mean, any Irish person that you meet around the world, they will say potatoes. Like, you know, it's been you know, a very much a staple diet. You would maybe have 3 different types of potatoes on your plate when you would have lunch. Excuse me. So I would say, yeah, that's probably the most popular in the food. I mean, we're absolutely inundated with amazing food. You know, we have the wild Irish salmon. You know, we've got some absolutely fantastic beef. Yeah, and we love our food, and you know, we're very into high quality food as well, which we're lucky enough to have. In terms of drinks, we love to drink tea. We absolutely love to drink tea, and lots of tea, regardless of whether something good or something negative has happened or it's been challenging. There's always a cup of tea to be had. And then I guess if you're going to extend your social fun or your social challenge, be it into the evening, then I'd say it would be Guinness. Guinness is it's an alcoholic drink. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's kind of got, I guess, a coffee kind of cream texture to it. But yeah, it's quite famous around the world. And I think, yeah, if you were to talk about drinks and food with Irish people, you probably would narrow it down to potatoes, tea, and Guinness.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're very welcome.
Okay, last question.
Ma'am.
Okay. Suddenly, when I said last question,
don't
many
fight.
people
It's okay, ladies.
Okay, who's like to start first? Jessica?
Yes, ma'am. Hello, Ma'am Sinet. I would like to ask, could you please tell us how is the education system in Ireland? Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold at the moment. The educational system in Ireland, I mean, I would say it's one of the best in the world. It is one of the tops, and it is getting there. I mean, you know, it's had a lot of focus, and you know, Ireland has this tradition of the island of saints and scholars. So that focus on education is huge. I mean, you know, growing up, it was very much pointed out to me by my parents, you know, and they really wanted me to get a good education, and they really, you know, gave me every opportunity for that education. And, you know, without a doubt, without their support and the support of the fantastic teachers that I had growing up, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today, without them. So yeah, there's a really strong focus within education in Ireland, and within culture within education as well. And yeah, I think, you know, overall, I think, you know, as a nation, we're very motivated to do well in anything we do. But I think within education, yes, so we're very we'd be very competitive with each other, but in, you know, it's a friendly competition. And I think that's really healthy to have that growing up as well, that you understand what healthy competition is. And I think within the schools, that's very much, you know, pushed for children as well, to have that healthy competition to do better, you know. So I think we're very lucky with that.
Is that clear enough, Jessica?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're so welcome.
Oh, okay, the very last question. Intan?
Actually, I have read in textbooks, but I told you, I just want to know it. How does methodology play a role in Irish culture? Can you explain simply? Thank you.
Sure. Sorry. I think my internet connection just zoned out there. What was that? What plays out? Sorry.
It's about the myth.
Oh, myths and legends. Oh my goodness, I need another 3 hours. Yeah, I mean, Ireland, like I said, the island of saints and scholars and myths and legends. We have so many. I mean, there's Tir na Nog that would have been, the island, the island of the land of the youth, basically, and people that would have gone there. The myths and legends would have it that they would go there and they would have eternal youth. So there's a lot of those kind of things that, if you see a white horse, be careful, because that it was a white horse that took them into the sea to take them to Tir na Nog. I think there's similar kind of stories about the white horses in Scotland as well. And I think there's something in Indonesia, I vaguely recall as well. But there are a lot of myths and legends within Ireland. Like we'll say the shamrock for the symbol of the unity, and you would have had a lot to do with the myths of the witches and the Cailleach. The Cailleach would be the Irish word for the witches, and we have traditions called Pisher Ogs. So these are like ancient traditions that you never throw eggs over a wall, and because the eggshells are bad for the land, and these kind of things that I have no idea where these myths or legends have come from, but it's just something that we practice. It's kind of better safe than sorry. I'm not really sure why, but I'm just going to do it just in case. I guess like the salt over a shoulder, it's a similar kind of practice. Not sure why, but at the same time, I'm going to be respectful because just in case, So yeah, there is a lot of that, and I mean some beautiful stories, about Clonlair and the children being turned into swans, and their father was the king, and there was a jealous stepmother and whatnot. I mean, in terms of Irish myths and legends, I could probably talk for hours about them, but I'm more than happy to send on some links with them as well after this.
Thank you, Intan, for the question. My very last question asked by them, actually,
Yep.
How to say thank you and see you in Irish?
So Gurav Mila Mahagut. So Gurav Mila Mahagut is basically like 100,000 thank yous. Like if you wanted to say hello to someone, it's Dia Gwit. So a similar translation to it's basically Dia Gwit. Dia is God and God to you. So similar to in Bahasa, Indonesia, and the same here in Egypt, salam alaikum, alaikum salam. It's very, very similar, but it's interesting that the Irish language, it's Dia Gwit, Dias Mergwit. And it's, Dia Gwit, may God be upon you. Dias Mergwit is may Mary be upon you also, may Mary and God be upon you. Yeah, and another one is Céad Míle Fáilte, which is a big one for Ireland, which is 100,000 welcomes. And I think that's something that we really mean when people visit Ireland, because, the doors are always open. There will always be someone to talk to. Everybody's interested in who you are and where you've come from. And, would you like to come in for a cup of tea? That's very common in Ireland, that, people are very warm and very open and very welcoming. And that's obviously one of the reasons why I loved Indonesia so much. It was a home from home.
Thank you very much, Mishani.
Thank you.
Okay, it's time for you to have your class.
Yes,
really,
and I'm sorry. I wish I could
right.
spend longer, but the job calls.
We really appreciate for your time for today, and
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, send our regards to your students, please.
I will, of